What's going on, guys? Hexadaze here, and welcome back to another Zenless Zone Zero video. With the initial rewards that come with the launch of any gacha game pretty much running dry, and most players having pulled on the past several banners in order to better build out their rosters, pull income's definitely becoming much more scarce in Zenless Zone Zero. In this video, I want to talk about my thoughts on pull priorities and why I'm not considering pulling any character dupes or signature W engines in the near future. This video is simply one man's opinion and I could be wrong, but I hope some people who are on the fence can find some information in this video helpful. I've been thinking about this topic quite a bit, especially after seeing usage data from SHIYU Defense from both the English and CN communities, testing Jane Doe over on the creator beta server, and hearing some rumors about the upcoming units Caesar and Bernice. So without further ado, let's get into the video. To start this video off, I want to take a look at SHIYU Defense appearance rates published by Pridewin. Shout out to the guys over at Pridewin for always putting together such valuable information. First, we simply have appearance rate by unit. When I refer to appearance rate, this is simply the number of people that used a character or team in SHIYU Defense. This is going to differ from a usage rate because usage rates only count if a person owns the character or all of the characters in a team. Most players are not going to have every single character that's available, so appearance rates and usage rates are going to differ. Looking at appearance rates by character, really no surprises here. We've got Ellen Jo in the first spot and Zhu Yuan in the fourth spot, but pretty close at 77 and 67%. And then kind of the other top spots are really just the supports that appear on these teams. After that, we're down into the 29% and lower for the rest of the units. So really everyone is either running an Ellen Jo or Zhu Yuan team in patch 1.1.1, which no real surprises there. SHIYU Defense is really was really favoring those units at the time. Where things get really interesting, in my opinion, is looking at rankings by teams and usage by team. And this is looking specifically at stage 7 during the 1.1.1 cycle. And we've got the first half on the left and the second half on the right. First half is dominated by Ellen Jo teams because of the enemy weaknesses. And similarly, the second half is going to be dominated by Zhu Yan because of enemy weaknesses there. So the top team at almost 40% usage is going to be Ellen Jo, Lycon, and Sukaku. And then this is going to drop down to 10% usage for the next most popular team, swapping in Anbi for Lycon. And then after that, we drop off substantially, swapping in some other stunners, and then just kind of random teams from there. Almost the exact same thing on the second half. We've got Zhu Yan team with Qingyi and Nicole at 40% usage. The next best team, the rank 2 team, is going to swap in Anbi for Qingyi. This is going to be higher than rank 2 team on the first stage, really because Anbi is just a pretty solid pick overall for the Zhu Yan team. That's my personal team that I'm running. She works well. And then we drop off to 3%. So really, there are about 4 teams that people are using in this cycle of SHIYU Defense, and then everything else is just kind of a random mashup of characters. So you can see that these strongest teams, or the most used teams, man, they are really focused around a couple core units. The other thing I wanted to point out here is that we've got Anbi at about 50% usage, which is really high. However, when we look at Pridewin's tier list, Anbi's down in tier 1, so she's not very high. She's not rated very well, but she's seeing a ton of usage. When we look at the other kind of T1 characters, really only one of these, Lucy, here she is seeing, you know, pretty high usage rates at 29%, and then we're falling off pretty hard. So interesting thing there. It does seem to be really centered around kind of what is the best team to support these main characters. I was able to also get a snapshot of the Chinese usage, and in this case, this is a usage rate and not an appearance rate. So this only takes into account people that have all of these characters. And even crazier here is that 85% is running, you know, what we know as Ellen Zhou's best team with Lycon and Sukaku, and 83% running Zhu Yan, Qingyi, and Nicole, and then it falls off crazy afterwards. So really, there are specific, very strong teams that are just going to outclass everyone else. And this is going to be important for later in the video, but it's just something I wanted to point out. I found these stats really interesting, and I wanted to share them with you guys. Now, you may be thinking, yo, Hexadaze, maybe since Zenless Zone Zero is so new, people really are only running a couple teams because we only have so many characters in the game. And I 100% agree. So I wanted to go back and I wanted to look at what did these breakdowns look like for Star Rail kind of around the launch and for Genshin around the launch. And unfortunately, Genshin Spiral Abyss stats didn't exist way back in, say, like patch 1.1, but I was able to dig up some information on Honkai Star Rail back in patch 1.1. Here we've got Memory of Chaos 1.1 Phase 3. And when we look at the different teams that are here, it is worth noting that only the most used team of each archetype is included, but the most used team is only at 3.9%. That means that we've got a ton of different types of teams that are showing up in this list, and we've got a lot more variety of, you know, the amount of characters that are being used and the teams that are being built. I mean, this is a huge difference from what we're seeing currently in the state of Zenless Zone Zero as it is in patch 1.1 as well. Another way to look at this data is to look at the rankings by popular duos. So, you know, top row, we've got Bronya duos, Sealy in the #1 spot at 57%, all the way down 8 spots. We've got Jeopard down at 15%, still hanging on pretty strong. So these Bronya teams, you know, they're pretty diverse. There's a lot of characters that are being run with Bronya. When we contrast this to, say, Zhu Wan specifically, we can see her common partners, 95% Nicole, 50% Qingyi, 37% Ambi, down to 6%. So just a massive fall off. There's really only 3 characters that people are running with Zhu Yuan. Okay, so let's go ahead and shift gears now. I want to talk about Jane Doe teams. I was able to test Jane Doe quite a bit over on the creator beta server. I just didn't have time to get out a video for various reasons, but there are a lot of ways to run Jane Doe, and it seems like there's kind of a lot of conflicting information in the community about which Jane Doe team is best, or does she really even have a best team at this time? And caveat, her best team isn't out. But, you know, looking at kind of some different teams, we got Jane Doe with Seth and either Rena or Lucy, Jane Doe with Grace and either Rena or Seth, and Jane Doe with Qingyi and either Rena or Seth. I tested all these teams under similar content. Basically, they all had very similar clear times. Now, some teams felt better to play than others, but really they're all pretty competitive with each other. Now, you run into a few problems with each of these teams. For team 1 with Jane Doe, Seth, and either Rena or Lucy, Seth is an amazing support for Jane Doe. However, it's really hard to get to that 3rd character slot because whenever you're using and triggering Seth's quick assist, you're bouncing back to Jane Doe. You know, Rena is solid, but she does feel a bit clunky, and Lucy, you just can't activate her additional ability. She really doesn't want to be on this team, but she performs very well. When we look at a disorder team with Jane Doe, Grace, and either Rena or Seth, in theory, this team is very good. However, Jane Doe and Grace are really both competing for field time. Jane Doe wants to do dash attacks. She wants to build up her meter and to stay in her passion state, whereas Grace also wants some field time to build up stacks and to be able to apply that additional anomaly with her EX skill. Team 3 with Jane Doe, Qingyi, and Rena or Seth. This is kind of a weird team. I don't think Qingyi was really meant to be paired with Jane Doe, but she's, you know, from the same faction, so they are activating that bonus, and she gives such a good buff to the Daze multiplier that she just works out really well here. However, all these teams do feel a bit off. Jane Doe's kit really allows her and kind of wants her to be ran in a disorder team. As we can see, for her additional ability to activate this, when another character in your squad is an anomaly character or shares the same faction, she's going to get her additional ability activated. So she wants another anomaly character in the party. However, Jane also wants a ton of field time. So really, you're going to want a character that can apply anomaly off field really well or very quickly, requiring little field time, which we just don't have at this time. Okay, so at this point in the video, I think I've emphasized the importance of the right team in ZZZ enough for the rest of the video. So I want to shift to a discussion about the value of having the right teammate versus a character dupe versus a character's signature W engine. I'm going to focus on Jane Doe for the purpose of this video, mostly because I've ran all the calculations on her, but this could apply to any other main DPS type character. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is take a look at Jane Doe and specifically look at her first mindscape. So pulling her up, checking out the first mindscape, it's going to give us an additional use of our basic attack Salcho Jump, which is our hold skill that we can use while in the passion state that deals a ton of damage and applies a ton of anomaly. Additionally, while in the passive state, we're going to increase our physical anomaly buildup rate by 15%, and we're going to be able to increase our damage by up to an additional 30%. So this is a pretty massive M1. M1 can be a really good mindscape a lot of the time. It's either typically a huge increase in damage, or it's going to unlock some part of our kit that we weren't able to do before, such as this additional attack. So this is a very good mindscape. The other thing I want to take a look at is the difference between say kind of a standard A rank anomaly W engine versus Jane Doe's signature. So a good A rank option for Jane Doe is going to be the Weeping Gemini. At max level, this thing's going to give 25% attack, and also whenever a squad member inflicts an attribute anomaly on an enemy, the equipper is going to get increase in anomaly proficiency of 30% at 1 star, going up to 46% at 5 stars, and this can stack up to 4 times. It's going to expire when either the enemy recovers from stun or is defeated. So really solid A rank option. However, it just can't compete with Jane Doe's S rank signature W engine. You know, her signature W engine is not only going to have a higher overall base attack, the W engine effect is just going to be better. So you're going to build up stacks with this thing. Once you reach max stacks, you're going to get a 36% increase in physical damage and an increase in your anomaly buildup rate of 40%, making this by far her best overall option. Okay, so to bring this all together, we know that Jane Doe's first mindscape and her signature W engine are very good, but how do these compare to, for example, upgrading her team? Say, just as an example, we're running Jane Doe with Ambi, and then we're able to replace her with a Qingyi. So Jane Doe's first mindscape is going to increase her damage based on my calculations by about 29%. Her signature W engine is going to perform about 27% better than the A rank Weeping Gemini. However, looking at replacing, say, Ambi with Qingyi on a Jane Doe team, that's going to increase Jane Doe's personal damage by about 29.5%. So really, all around, these are kind of similar increases overall. However, Qingyi, for example, is a character that can be used on another team. Having the right characters on your team can make the team just feel better overall. And there's something to be said just for how a team feels and how they play all together. Another good example of a really similar character to Qingyi is going to be Lycon on a Ellen Joe team. You know, Lycon is going to also increase the target's stun damage multiplier and provide ice damage resistance decrease by 25%. So Lycon's going to just fit extremely well into an Ellen Joe team, and replacing a character like Ambi, who we saw did get some use on Ellen Joe teams with Lycon, is going to be just a massive upgrade overall. There are other things to consider as well. You know, ice teams really only want to have ice applied to the enemy at all times, because when enemies are frozen, they are going to take additional crit damage. You know, so to wrap things up, I want to summarize and give you guys my personal plans as a light spender in Zenless Zone Zero. I'm actually saving up for both Caesar and Bernice next patch. I know these two units are going to work well together, and then I've also got both Lucy and Piper, so I can run a couple different combinations of your faction teams. And I've also have Grace and her signature weapon, so I can really make use of Grace alongside Bernice. I've actually only pulled a single S rank agent at this time, which is Zhu Yuan, and I'm personally playing the long game. In general, I think the meta in ZZZ for low spenders is going to be pulling teams, which is probably going to involve pulling several consecutive agents in a row and then saving based on how the gacha banners have gone so far since the game released. And I think light spenders should maybe, as a result, be prepared to pull on reruns. The overall enjoyability of characters might be reliant on having the right team, so that's just something to keep in mind. And with Zenless teams consisting of only 3 agents and additional abilities requiring certain team comps to activate, teams in ZZZ just seem to be more important than in other Hoyo games. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel. And I'll see you guys soon for the next video. Peace.